A suggested reassessment date of 3 months out. The reason for that is because your metabolism is very dynamic. It will change based on nutrition, lifestyle, and exercise adjustments you make. So it's important for us to consistently reassess you to see if what you're doing is working or not. 3 months is a long enough period of time to make some significant changes to your metabolism, but it's also short enough that if we're not, we catch it quickly and make the necessary adjustments, okay? So, all right, this is telling us today that your resting metabolic rate is 1,357 calories. So essentially, if you were to lie in bed and watch TV all day long, this is how many calories your body would burn, keeping your muscles and organs functioning throughout the day. Cool. All right, I see you smiling, so is this number different from what you were expecting?
No, I didn't really have an expectation, but it's pretty cool how at resting, like...
Still burn a lot of calories, right?
Burning, yeah.
So, and you know, a lot of times when people think about resting metabolic rate, they think they want to have the highest score possible, right? The highest metabolism possible. But a lot of times when you have a very high metabolism, it can be a sign that your body's working too hard just to do the basic life functions, right? There's too much inflammation or other things that it's trying to manage, right? So having a score like this, which is actually relatively low, considering the amount of lean body mass that you have, is actually a good sign, all right? That your body is kind of stress-free, which is good. So especially after doing that heavy lifting day with Charity a couple of days ago, I would have expected it to be maybe a little bit more elevated than this. But again, you recovered really, really well. Okay. The things that will influence your resting metabolic rate are going to be lean body mass, okay, sleep patterns, stress patterns, hormones like thyroid in particular, that will look into that. So there's a number of things that can go into this, and it's going to change daily, right, based off of some of those factors and other things that you have going on in your life. But in general, what we've done is said, hey, this is a minimum that you should be consuming on a daily basis to meet the energy demands of your body, right? If you're not doing this, your body's going to say, hey, I don't care what kind of healthy way of life goals you have, I'm just trying to keep you alive, right? And so I'm going to take anything that you have and I'm going to put it towards that, and I'm going to get rid of things that make it harder for me to keep you alive. And that first thing it's going to get rid of is muscle tissue, right? It requires more energy to sustain muscle than it does to sustain fat. So if you're under eating consistently, not one day, but regularly, your body's going to start to get rid of muscle tissue, and that's going to bring your metabolism down more and more.
No good.
Okay? So this is not the optimal amount of calories. This is the minimum, all right? Now, you don't, you work out pretty consistently, very aggressively. And there are days where you're on your feet a lot too. So ignore this lifestyle burn. This is assuming that you sit at a desk all day and do nothing else, which maybe right now with work in school, that may be part of your day. But it's just, this is a rough number. This we actually measure. So I said, just ignore that. Let's focus on this and any calories you burn through your workouts, and then we'll figure out, okay, exactly how many you should be consuming based on your healthy way of life goals. And that's where recording your information, even during a strength training session with your Lifetime Member app, can still give you accurate calorie burn information, much better than what like my Garmin would give me. Because my Garmin doesn't know, because we've measured your breathing. We know when you're at these heart rate ranges, here's how much fat and carbohydrates you burn and total calories you burn, so we can give you a much better score than what a general heart rate monitor score would give you.
Got it.
So any questions on this score so far?
No.
All right, so what we're gonna do now, I'm gonna email all this to you so you have it. We're gonna go down here and say, you can see your predicted burn rate was 1335. You've got 1357. So you're really right smack dab at your predicted burn rate, right? Based off of my experience of doing as many tests as I've done, with your exercise background, the fact that you're working and going to school at the same time, I would have expected the amount of stress that you're under to have had a negative impact on your score, but it's actually really good. So this goes a long way towards showing if you have the right nutrition patterns and lifestyle and things like that, you can offset stress. Physical or mental or emotional.
Stress less.
Now, this looks pretty good, but if it's all coming from carbs, it's not going to be that good. Let's take a breakdown and see how much is coming from fat and carbs. Ooh, pretty. All right, so 84% of the calories that you burn at rest come from fat, and the rest come from carbohydrates. That's exactly what we want to see. You're in the optimal category right now, right? This means that your potential to see change in your body is very high relative to somebody who was like me the first time I tested, where I was 92% carb burn, 8% fat burn. Right? This is why I had 55 pounds to lose when I did my first assessment, right? So the biggest factors or influencers of this ratio is going to be your diet, specifically carbohydrate consumption, right? So we want you to eat lots of healthy carbs, right? Go to town on your vegetables, eat as many as you want, and be selective with the fruit, the starches, and obviously desserts and alcohol, right? It's also going to be your stress patterns, right? think of exercise as a form of stress, right? If you're coming in with lots of mental or emotional stress, you don't want to put yourself through a high intensity physical stress because you're just dumping more stress on your body, right? So it seems counterintuitive, but on those days, you actually want to do real easy, light workouts. And on the days you feel great, go ahead and push as hard as you want.
Yeah.
And then sleep, right? So again, you didn't even sleep that great last night, but you still got a really good score. So imagine what it could have been. You know, when you sleep well, which means you go to bed early and you stay asleep, then you actually burn most of your fat in a day while you're sleeping. Okay. Your body produces growth hormone, your muscle repair is heightened, you regulate your hunger and satiety hormones better. I mean, everything is better with better sleep. Right? That's something that unfortunately a lot of our members don't value. But great scores here. If you did score less than this, we would dive into inflammation, gut health, blood sugar management, hormone imbalance. I mean, all these different topics, but you're killing it, right? So we don't have to do that right now.
Okay.
And then the rest of this is saying, okay, how are we going to take this information and create a plan that involves our core 3 methodology of knowing your body, nourishing your body, and then moving your body, right?
Know it, nourish, move it.
Exactly. Well, we've got the Know It with your resting metabolic assessment. We've also got the active metabolic assessment. You can go deeper into the Know It by doing a MyZone questionnaire. That's a complimentary service that we provide to all members and team members. And that, what we do is we ask you about different symptoms that you may be experiencing and how frequently you're experiencing them. And they may give us insights into certain areas of dysfunction inside your body, whether it's blood sugar management, cortisol, thyroid, sex hormones, gut health. I mean, all these different areas. Your scores aren't necessarily like screaming at me to do that because you did pretty well, but if you ever want to get deeper, that's our next step to figure out if we need to go deeper, and then from that we may say, wow, you scored really high in gut health issues. We might need to do XYZ labs to find out why that is, and then go from there. So, and then, you know, the rest of it's nourish it. Obviously, you got to eat smart. We've got our lifetime weight loss site and our Core 3 training site here where you can download a lot of educational resources to help you make smart choices with your nutrition. And then the Move It piece is just making sure that you have a smart plan in place. You're working with charity. You obviously have a great background in this, so I'm sure you're covered there. But just making sure there's variety with a purpose, right? It's not just changing it up just to change it up, right? And there's progression with everything that you do, and that you're mixing cardio and strength training to optimize your metabolism.
Cool.
Okay? But overall, you killed it.
So resting, for resting.
Yeah, resting assessment, A+ score. So, what we're going to do now is figure out what protocol is ideal for you to do your test at. So, if you were to run on the treadmill for, say, 30 to 40 minutes straight, no stopping, what's the speed you feel would be comfortable for you to maintain?
556.
556. All right, let's start with 5.5. It's too easy. You can always bump it up. Go up to speed. The reason we're doing a warm-up is because when you first start to exercise, your body doesn't know how long this workout's going to last or how hard it's going to get, so it just tries to burn the easiest type of calories it can, which is always going to be carbohydrates. And so what we're trying to do is burn through your carbohydrate storage as quickly as possible so we can burn more fat than the actual workout itself. Okay. All right, my friend, if you had to, could you maintain this speed for 2 hours or more, 1 to 2 hours tops, or 30, 60 minutes tops?
2 hours or more.
2 hours or more. All right, here's Camille doing her active metabolic assessment, finding out how effectively she's going to be burning fat and carbohydrates at different heart rate ranges. Here's her data displayed up on this big screen. Camille doing her active metabolic assessment. A real comfortable pace right now, burning lots of fat. Emil now over 7 miles an hour. Crushing it. Emil maxing out. 7.7 miles per hour. Big sprint at the end. So we're going to review your active metabolic assessment, and just like you with your resting assessment, we've got a suggested retest date of 3 months out, because again, your metabolism is very dynamic. It will change. 3 months is long enough to make some significant changes, but also short enough that if you're not, we catch it early and make the pivot. I'm actually going to talk to you about, on the next page, some things to observe during your workouts to actually know when it's time to get reassessed. Okay, so because it might be a lot sooner than that or later, depending on how consistent you are with your workouts. All right, so this is telling us that you have 5 different zones. Now, everybody's got 5 different zones. What's unique to you are the heart rate ranges within each of your 5 zones, how fast you need to be on the treadmill to get into these 5 zones, and then how many calories per minute you're burning at these different speeds, okay? And what this is showing us is as we raise the speed more and more, well, your heart rate naturally starts to climb higher and higher, right? And the reason for that is because your cardiovascular system is trying to keep up with your muscles' demands for oxygen so you can break down fat for fuel. But at a certain point, which for you was 6.1 miles an hour, the intensity of the exercise started to become a little bit too great, and your cardiovascular system started to struggle to meet your muscles' demands for the oxygen, and so your fat burning actually started to get worse and worse until you hit 6.9 miles an hour at 166 beats per minute, and everybody says, I'm out. No more fat burn for you, okay? So we want you to stay below 6.9 miles an hour and 166 beats per minute for the bulk of the time that you do your cardiovascular workouts.
Okay.
You cool with that?
Makes sense.
All right. And so when doing your workouts, when you're on the treadmill, the goal is to focus here on the speeds, and then observe your heart rate over here to see if things are changing.
I never paid attention to that heart rate thing, so now I'll pay
it's
attention
really
to
cool,
it.
right? And what really impacts heart rate the most is the frequency and volume of your workouts, right? So if you're really consistent, we should be able to see a positive heart rate response. And what we want to see is a lower heart rate at these same speeds. So each of these speeds took you up to the top of each of these heart rate ranges, okay? So if in 3 weeks from now, 6.9 instead of getting to 166 is getting you to 163, that's a positive adaptation. Your body's saying, hey, I'm better at delivering oxygen to the muscles, so I don't have to pump as quickly anymore. And because you're better at getting oxygen to the muscles, you're now burning more fat at that same speed than you were before.
Makes sense.
So a 3 beat drop is good. Doesn't necessarily mean your zones have changed though. You want to see a 7 beat drop or more before it's time to know, before you know it's time to get reassessed. Okay? So again, it could be as quick as a month, it could be a lot longer if you're not very consistent with what you're doing, okay? Which I'm not too worried about with you. So when you're here on a treadmill, it's all about this and observing here. When you're off the treadmill doing cardiovascular workouts, now it's about following the heart rate ranges, and ideally, anything off the treadmill, we don't want you doing workouts above zone 2, okay? So, now, specifically cardio. If you're strength workouts, sometimes, you know, especially if you're doing your power lifts, it can get you up there, spike you up there. But specifically with cardio that's not on the treadmill, we want you to stay at zone 2 or less, because your heart rate zones and the amount of stress that you're putting your body through on different equipment is different than it is on the treadmill. Okay? Just because you're at 156 to 160 on an elliptical or a rower doesn't mean you're burning fat and carbohydrates the same way, because you're now seated and you're stressing your body very differently, right? And so we want to make sure we're not overstressing your body, and because your treadmill zone 2 might be your zone 4 on a bike or on a rower, right? Or step mill. So because we don't know that yet, we're going to say, hey, let's play it safe. Anytime you're off the treadmill, stay below 160, or say the weather gets nice and you want to run outside. Again, we want to say start again. If you have lots of hills and things like that, and you know the area you're going to be running is going to be really hilly, use the heart rate focus and then try to stay below zone 2. If you're running on a fairly flat surface, then you can do this, because we can't factor in what hills will do to the amount of muscles and nervous system and activation, all that kind of stuff that we go. So follow speeds when they're on the treadmill, observe heart rate. When you're off the treadmill, it's all about following the certain heart rate ranges and not training too much anaerobically, because when you do, it puts a lot of stress and a lot of inflammation on your body. Those are 2 things to stop your body from burning fat effectively.
Got it.
All right, any questions on how to read this little table?
Nope.
All right. And I'm going to email all this to you so
Yeah.
you can look through this in more detail. And this page is just basically telling you when you train in different zones, you create different types of adaptations in your body. So we don't want you just to train in zones where you're only good at burning fat. We want you to train through a wide variety of intensities so you get all those different adaptations and your metabolism is optimal at a variety of intensities.
Got it.
Okay? So we don't, however, as I mentioned before, we don't want you training too much in zone 3, and especially 4 and 5, because as I mentioned earlier, the stress and inflammation of that level of intensity will start to outweigh the benefits of training there if it's done too often. Okay, so you got to spend some time here, which we'll talk about in the next page, but not too much. Okay. All right, so this is your fat burning graph. Okay, so this is telling us today that when you spend an hour training at 6.1 miles an hour, which is your zone 1 speed, you burn 528 calories, with 82% of those calories coming from fat and the rest coming from carbohydrates. Okay, so if we look, 82% of fat, 528 is like 420, 430 calories of fat. So these areas represent your fat burn, and these are your carbohydrate burn. Nice job. 82% is a great number. We want to see at least 60% or higher in zone 1. So you got that. We want at least 40% or higher in zone 2 and at least 30% or higher in zone 3. So you're killing it in all 3.
Yeah.
Okay. As I mentioned though, as this speed picks up, well now your cardiovascular system struggles and your oxygen deliverability gets worse, so your fat burning gets worse and worse. All right. And you can see here in zone 4, yeah, we're out, right? So the goal now is to say, hey, instead of burning 82% of 528 calories from fat, I'd like to burn 82% of this number from fat. Now you're burning 800 calories from fat, which is more than total calories than you're burning in your currently in your zone 3, right?
Yeah.
So the way we do that is 2 ways. First is nutrition, okay? Meaning smart carbohydrate consumption, right? If you eat carbs, your body burns carbs, right? So when it comes to your carbohydrates, go to town on your veggies, eat as many as you want, just like we talked about yesterday. Be selective with your fruit. You know, berries are obviously going to be your best bet. And then after that, starches, alcohol, desserts. You want to keep all that stuff minimal, right? And if you do that, your body's saying, hey, I don't have the easy stuff for me to burn. I have to go burn more fat, right? But instead of burning a little bit of fat, I want it to burn a lot of fat. And that's where their cardio program is going to be so critical, because we have to enhance how much oxygen you can deliver to your muscles, okay? And so the way your cardio program is structured is to have 80% of your time spent in zones 1 and 2, and the rest spent in zones 3 through 5. Now that's not every workout, that's over the course of the week, okay? And the reason it's set up that way is you want to think of fat burning just like strength training, right? If you can't lift something that weighs 200 pounds, you're definitely not lifting something that weighs 300 pounds, right? Well, same thing here. If we can't burn fat well in these lower ranges, we're definitely not going to burn fat well in these higher ranges. So we have to spend the bulk of our time building up a strong aerobic foundation or base. And then we've got to peak up here, right? Otherwise, we'll never get better at burning fat up here. Just like if you never lift 250 and 275, you'll never get to 300, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, but again, too much time here. Just like, you know, you can't, when you power lift, you can't do 3 rep max every time you work out, right?
Yeah.
That's just not going to work. So, all right. This next page is showing you that based off your weight and body fat percentage, this is how many calories of fat are stored in your body relative to carbs. Everybody has way more fat than carbohydrates stored in their body. The point of showing you this is to say, hey, this is the bigger source of energy and it's the better source of energy, right? So we gotta teach the body, let's tap into that as much as possible, right? And your body's doing a pretty good job with that already. But again, the more we work on that diet component, the more we work on staying consistent with the cardio routine, the better, right? And this score can come down. You know, 1 pound of fat is 3,500 calories. So, you know, if you were to lose 5 pounds, that'd be like 17,000 calories that you'd be burning off of there, right? So it can come down, but it's never gonna get this close. If it gets this low, you're dead, all right? So don't worry about that. You have a finite amount of carbohydrates you can store in your body, whereas fat, you know, is unlimited, which is why we have 1,000-pound people out there, right? So, so the goal is to say, hey, let's tap into that, because not only is it a better source of energy in terms of how much energy it gives you, it's a cleaner source of energy for your body in terms of it doesn't produce lactate, it doesn't have all these metabolites that put stress and inflammation on your body.
Got it.
Okay. Woo! Look at this. This is your VO2 score. This is the peak volume of oxygen your body can take in and deliver to your muscles. 47.1 milliliters puts you in the optimal category. Excellent job, right? So that's fantastic. The higher the score is, the more calories per minute you can burn, the greater potential to burn them from fat, And most importantly, the lower your risk of dying from any disease, specifically cardiovascular disease, okay? Because this is the #1 indicator of all-cause mortality right now.
Yeah.
So we want the score to be as high as possible. And when you have a high score like this, it means that your ability to see change in your body, not just change in your body, but change in fitness and performance levels is much higher than somebody who is down this range, right? They had a lot longer to go, a lot bigger way to go. And this score can go up very quickly, even at where it is right now, because it's relative to your body weight. So if you were to lose 3 to 5 pounds of fat and gain a pound of muscle or something like that, and stay consistent with your program, you can jack the score up. I've seen people who jump the score 6 to 8 milliliters in a month.
Whoa.
If they're really consistent. But the higher it gets, obviously, the harder it becomes now to keep jacking it up quite that much.
Yeah.
But if you're in the 40s, you're doing well. If you're in the 50s, I tell people you're an endurance athlete, or you're an athlete in general. And then if you're in the 60s or higher, you're an endurance athlete. Okay, so we're off to a great start.
Yes.
Okay, which is why your other scores look as good as they do. So, any questions on that one?
Nope.
All right. So the only way to measure this, unfortunately, is with the mask, breathing, all that good stuff. So, but it's the most important score that we get in our test. All right, so this is your warm-up. So if we think about this,
12 minutes.
yeah, you're fat burning.
I'm horrible with not warming up.
Well, look at this. Look what it did for you. You're 82, 63, 49. You're a really good fat burner, but it's only because we did that warm-up ahead of time. Had you not done it, your scores would have been much worse, right? So we've got to knock it out. And not only for, again, we're not thinking about fat burning just for body composition purposes. Again, we're thinking about for maximizing your energy and endurance at higher intensity levels. We're thinking about doing this to help get blood flowing through your muscles and joints so you reduce your risk of injury. And obviously, we're thinking about doing this to activate as many muscle fibers as possible, whether this is for cardio or your strength and power workouts, right?
Got it.
So for you, start at 3.6, go up 1 mile an hour to 4.6, and after that, it's just 0.4 mile an hour increases every 2 minutes, right?
It'll go by fast.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's 12 minutes worth of work, and then it's the 5-minute recovery period.
Yeah, okay.
It's not on here, but that's absolutely critical. You can't jump straight into your workout after this. And in fact, the app won't even let you. It'll coach you to do the 5-minute break.
Okay, got it. Because I would be the one who's like, all right, 12 minutes up. All right,
yeah, I'm good. Let's go.
Let's go.
But during that 5-minute break, you can foam roll, you can stretch, you can do some light core workout. Just nothing that's going to get your heart rate really high. Okay.
Got it. That's where I need to make sure I stick to that.
Exactly. And the rest of this is saying, okay, what's next? How are we going to take this information and apply it to you? And what I've done is I built a cardio program for you. So we're going to go over that in just a second. But before we do that, I want to show you the last couple pages here. And these are just healthy way of life tips that are not necessarily specific to you. They're general tips that focus on movement, nutrition, stress, and sleep. So are any of those areas of concern for you? Sleep? Okay, so let's talk about it.
On the questionnaire that
My Zone? Yeah.
There was a couple questions about sleep, of whether you wake up more than once or something, and those were like my 3 areas.
Gotcha. Okay.
Sleep part.
Well, sleep is critical, right? Every person needs to sleep, whether they feel like it or not. I'm somebody who doesn't need a lot of sleep energy-wise, right? But I need a lot of sleep in order for my metabolism to function optimally, because when I don't, it's very easy for my body to switch from being an okay fat burner to a really good carb burner instead. But when you go to sleep at night, that's when your body produces your growth hormone, which stimulates that fat metabolism, that muscle repair from the strength training workouts that you've done. It's actually how your body regulates your hunger and satiety hormones as well. So it's critical that we go to sleep. And the key here is that we go to bed at a good time, right? Ideally,
for 8 hours. To get 8 hours.
If you get 7, I'm happy.
Yeah.
8 is great, but if I get 8 hours, I mean, it's very, very rare that I get 8 hours. So, but the point is, we want you to go to sleep by 11 o'clock at night, at the latest. Not get in bed at 11, but be out asleep. Yeah.
Asleep, so get bed by 10 then.
Whatever works for you, right? And the way to do that is to have a consistent nighttime routine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So every night at this time, I'm starting my process, and that way your body starts to get into a rhythm of knowing, oh, okay, she's shutting down, and you fall asleep a lot faster. But if it's always work or TV or a phone, all this artificial light, that's stimulating, it's making it hard for your body to produce the melatonin that you need, and therefore you don't get as sleepy or as fatigued, right?
Got it.
So now, step 1 is go to bed early. Step 2 is stay asleep.
That's my issue, and I don't know what it is. I'm always at my job. I get night sweats too, I feel like there's something with my body temperature at night where it kicks up and I get night sweats.
Okay.
Then I'm up, I have to take a towel and like dry myself
Yeah.
off. Or because I drink so much water, it's a bathroom break thing.
Yep, and we can go into all of that. I mean, because there are reasons for all this.
At
right?
least twice. It's at least twice a night. And then I try to turn around and get comfortable.
The first thing that I would recommend is turning the temp down. Maybe just doing it at night. Maybe not all the time, but because you want to have a cold room to sleep. All right, that way you get under those covers. You're like, oh, this is nice and cozy, but you're not like sweating and it's super hot, right? So that you can start there and see if that has an impact on the night sweats or not.
Yeah.
If it's not, then there might be something else going on with your metabolism and hormones that may be creating that issue. Yeah, and we have the labs to look into that if we have to go that route down the road. The other is this guy. Okay, if you struggle to stay asleep, a lot of times it's cortisol. So when you mentioned using the restroom, so my goal, I don't drink any water after 7 p.m.
Whoa.
Okay.
I'm drinking water all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I drink probably close to 200 ounces of water a day. So I drink a lot of water, but I've cut it off at 7, so that way I don't have that issue. And that way I know if I am waking up at night and it's not my newborn waking me up, it's more of a stress-based response or a glucose imbalance or something that I can fix that way. But that's step one is try to get to that point so we can eliminate that as the cause. Because if that's all it is, well, great, that's an easy, relatively easy fix, right? But if you do that and you're still waking up at night, then we got to dive deeper into potentially what's going on there, because that's a huge driver of metabolism in general, not just your sleep patterns at night. Okay. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to review your cardio program. So, are any other questions on this before we do that?
Nope.